American farmers are bracing for some big changes under President Trump's new immigration policy.
All the way to Mexico, slashing more than 600 jobs in Illinois and Iowa in the process. This is just recently.
John Deere announced it is laying off nearly 120 employees at a facility in Ankeny. The layoffs impact workers at John Deere Des Moines Works.
For years, John Deere has been at the heart of American farming, powering the fields with its iconic green machines. Farmers trusted the brand to drive their businesses and fuel the economy. However, this trust is being tested as John Deere makes significant changes, including outsourcing production to Mexico. This move has sparked major concerns.
John Deere is moving some production from Iowa to Mexico. The company is acquiring land there to build a facility that will be operational by 2026.
As it could lead to a 200% tariff on John Deere products entering the United States. This shift could impact the entire $34.5 billion agricultural industry, affecting not only farmers, but also the communities that rely on them. As farmers brace for higher costs, layoffs, and uncertain futures, a crisis is unfolding within the farming world. The collapse of an icon, John Deere's struggles. John Deere, a company that was once synonymous with American farming, is now facing a series of challenges that have shaken its foundation. For nearly 2 centuries, farmers have relied on John Deere to help cultivate fields and harvest crops. The company was seen as an emblem of innovation, reliability, and the American farming dream.
Meet the next generation of 7R tractors. They've been redesigned inside and out with you and your work in mind.
But in recent years, the company's struggles have intensified. With declining sales, increasing equipment costs, and an economic downturn, John Deere is no longer the unshakable force it once was. The agricultural industry, valued at over $34 billion, is now under pressure, and John Deere is at the center of the storm. John Deere's layoffs have had a profound impact, not only on the workers affected, but also on the entire agricultural sector.
The fallout from a strike at manufacturing giant John Deere, combined with a global supply chain shortage, is now trickling down to farmers.
The company has been a cornerstone of stability for farming communities across the United States, employing thousands of workers for generations. However, as the company faces financial difficulties, it has made deep cuts, shedding more than 4,500 jobs since 2015. These layoffs have rippled through the industry, affecting workers, farmers, and the wider economy. With John Deere struggling to maintain its position, the future of American agriculture is uncertain, and farmers are left wondering how long they can rely on the company that once stood as a symbol of strength and prosperity. This year, nearly 200 factory workers in Iowa alone lost their jobs as John Deere faced production slowdowns.
Layoffs at John Deere. Almost 10% of production workers at Harvester Works in East Moline found out today they are being laid off indefinitely.
In a town where John Deere is often the largest employer, these layoffs hit hard. Families who have depended on the company for generations are now struggling to find new work. Local businesses that once thrived off the spending of John Deere employees are also feeling the impact. These layoffs, however, are just a symptom of a much deeper issue. Farmers are no longer buying new equipment. With falling crop prices and rising costs, many are postponing or canceling plans to purchase expensive tractors, harvesters, and other machinery. As John Deere's sales decline, the company is forced to reduce production and, unfortunately, let workers go.
Today is the last day on the job for hundreds of John Deere workers.
These changes are being made due to reduced demand for the products produced at these facilities.
This economic domino effect is devastating to rural communities, many of which were already struggling. When John Deere reduces jobs, it's not just the employees who suffer, it's the entire way of life in these small towns. For decades, John Deere was the gold standard for farm equipment. Farmers trusted the brand, willing to pay a premium for tractors and tools they knew would deliver exceptional performance. But now, that loyalty is quickly fading. One of the main reasons is John Deere's restrictive policies on repairs. Farmers are frustrated by the company's tight control over how equipment can be serviced, leading to a backlash that has been so severe that some states have even passed laws demanding John Deere ease its repair restrictions. Despite these efforts, many farmers feel it's too little, too late. As a result, they are seeking alternatives. Brands like Kubota, AGCO, and Case IH are gaining popularity by offering equipment that's easier to repair at more affordable prices. Even smaller, lesser-known brands and imports from countries like China are making their way into American fields. John Deere's refusal to adapt to the demands of farmers has led to many loyal customers leaving, and with the company already struggling financially, losing even a small portion of its customer base could have devastating consequences. John Deere's problems are not just about internal business decisions. They are also a reflection of a larger economic shift in agriculture that is impacting farms around the world. Since 2022, crop prices have plummeted, with corn falling by 37%, soybeans by 24%, and wheat by 35%.
Across the world, consumers are grappling with soaring food prices, tied in part to the rise in costs of staple ingredients like wheat.
For American farmers, this means lower profits and fewer resources to justify purchasing expensive machinery. On top of this, China, once predicted to become a major importer of American-grown food, has turned toward boosting its own agricultural production. This shift has led to reduced demand for U.S. exports, hitting farmers hard. To make matters worse, global inflation has caused prices to rise across the board, from diesel fuel to fertilizers. Meanwhile, high interest rates make it more difficult for farmers to borrow money to purchase new equipment. These factors have combined to create the perfect storm that is devastating American agriculture, and John Deere is not immune to its effects. In an attempt to navigate these challenges, John Deere made one of its most controversial decisions yet, shifting some of its manufacturing operations to Mexico. The response was immediate and fierce.
John Deere plant in Ottumwa is losing some of its production to Mexico.
Farmers, workers, and politicians across the country saw this move as a betrayal of American jobs in favor of cutting costs. For John Deere, the decision was about staying competitive and optimizing operations. The company argued that moving parts of its production, such as cab assembly to Mexico, would help keep high-value manufacturing in the United States. However, to many, this felt like a corporate decision that prioritized profits over the well-being of American workers and communities. This bold move has sparked intense debate about the future of American manufacturing and whether companies like John Deere can continue to operate with the same level of trust and loyalty from their customers. John Deere's decision to outsource some of its lower-skill tasks to Mexico was part of a larger strategy to reduce costs without abandoning U.S. production altogether. On paper, it made sense. Mexico offers cheaper labor, lower operating costs, and favorable trade policies. By moving some of its production to Mexico, John Deere believed it could reinvest in innovation and secure long-term profitability. However, for workers in the United States, this felt like a deep betrayal. Thousands had already lost their jobs due to layoffs, and now, instead of focusing on rebuilding, the company was shifting jobs out of the country. To many, this decision was a slap in the face to American workers. But what John Deere may not have anticipated was the intense political backlash that followed, setting the stage for a heated national debate. It didn't take long for former President Donald Trump to voice his opinion on John Deere's move.
Former President Trump has announced possible plans to hit John Deere with tariffs.
Known for his hardline stance on trade and manufacturing, Trump saw this decision as a direct attack on American jobs. At a campaign rally, he made his position clear, promising to impose a 200% tariff on John Deere imports if the company followed through with its plan to shift production to Mexico. Trump wasn't just making empty threats. This was a serious economic warning. His administration had already used tariffs successfully to pressure companies to keep jobs in the U.S., including tariffs on Chinese goods that reshaped global trade. Now he was bringing that same strategy to bear on John Deere. The logic was simple. If the company wanted to manufacture in Mexico, it would have to pay a heavy price when selling those products back in the U.S. A 200% tariff would make it nearly impossible for John Deere to profit from imports, forcing the company to reconsider its decision. This bold statement sent shockwaves through the industry. John Deere's stock dropped by more than 1.5% in after-hours trading, and Wall Street analysts began to worry that such a tariff could disrupt the company's supply chain, possibly leading to even more layoffs. The big question became, would John Deere back down, or would it stand firm despite the economic risks? However, Trump's reaction was not the only one that would shake the company. Farmers and workers across the country were about to take matters into their own hands. Protests and boycotts. Farmers stand against outsourcing. John Deere's decision to shift jobs to Mexico didn't just stir political debate. It hit a personal nerve for thousands of American farmers. For decades, John Deere was a symbol of American farming strength, with its success deeply connected to the prosperity of rural communities. But now, many of these same communities felt abandoned. In response, farmers began organizing protests and boycotts across the Midwest.
More than 10,000 John Deere workers are on strike at a critical time. Farmers are harvesting their crops.
Rallies were held outside John Deere dealerships, with farmers demanding that the company reconsider its decision. Some even went as far as to stop purchasing John Deere equipment altogether, opting for alternatives like Kubota, Case IH, and AGCO. Meanwhile, John Deere workers still on the job feared that the outsourcing trend could lead to even more layoffs in the future. For those who had worked for the company for decades, seeing jobs move across the border felt like watching their livelihoods slip away. The pressure from farmers and workers alike put John Deere in a difficult spot. The company was already struggling with declining sales and rising costs. Could it afford to alienate its customers even further? For years, the United States has been the global leader in agriculture, exporting billions of dollars worth of crops and farm equipment. However, that dominance is now being challenged, and China is playing a key role in this shift. Once seen as a country that would always rely on imports to feed its massive population, China has completely changed the game. Through significant government investment, new technology, and strategic policies, China has become an agricultural powerhouse. One of the most significant changes has been China's rise in farm equipment manufacturing. In the past, farmers around the world turned to brands like John Deere and Case IH for high-quality machinery, but now Chinese companies like YTO Group and Zoomlion are offering tractors, harvesters, and precision farming tools at a fraction of the cost, sometimes half the price. While these machines may not yet have the same reputation for quality as John Deere, for farmers facing tight budgets, the lower price tag is hard to ignore. In regions like Africa, South America, and even parts of Europe, Chinese-made farm equipment is gaining popularity. Countries that once relied on American exports are now turning to China's more affordable alternatives. For John Deere, this presents a major challenge. If global farmers begin turning away from American-made equipment, the company's future as a leader in the industry could be in serious jeopardy. But China's impact on American agriculture doesn't stop with equipment. It extends to crop production as well. American farmers are facing a brutal economic reality, and much of the blame falls on China's increasing dominance in global crop production. Since 2022, crop prices have plummeted, with corn dropping by over 37%.
The global corn market is likely to remain tight into 2022.
And wheat and soybean prices also taking a significant hit. A major reason for this decline is that China has become a major agricultural producer in its own right. For years, experts believed that China's growing population and urbanization would make it one of the world's biggest importers of American agricultural products. As a result, U.S. farmers expected to profit from China's increasing food needs. However, instead of relying more on U.S. imports, China has invested heavily in its own agricultural sector, expanding irrigation systems, developing high-yield crop varieties, and modernizing farming techniques. The result? China now grows far more of its own crops, meaning it imports less from the United States. This has created an oversupply in the market, driving prices down and leaving American farmers struggling to make ends meet. As farmers earn less, they have less money to invest in new equipment, which only exacerbates the problem for companies like John Deere. For decades, American farmers were told that China would always be a reliable market for exports. Now that assumption is being shattered, leaving U.S. agriculture scrambling for new markets and solutions. But China's rise isn't the only force changing the landscape of American farming. As John Deere battles declining sales and growing foreign competition, another revolution is sweeping across the farming industry: automation. Autonomous tractors, robotic harvesters, and AI-powered precision farming tools are completely transforming how crops are grown and harvested. These new technologies promise to increase efficiency, reduce labor costs, and improve overall productivity on the farm. As a result, companies that fail to adapt to these changes could find themselves left behind. For John Deere, staying ahead of the curve in this rapidly evolving technological landscape will be critical to maintaining its relevance and ensuring its long-term survival. The question now is whether the company can adapt quickly enough to the shifting tides of the global agricultural industry. John Deere has been leading the charge in agricultural innovation, investing billions into developing cutting-edge technologies like self-driving tractors, automated sprayers, and AI-powered monitoring systems. Their latest autonomous tractor is designed to plow fields, plant seeds, and spray crops, all without a human operator. Using GPS and advanced sensors, it can navigate fields independently, working around the clock without the need for breaks. For farmers, this technology holds the promise of significant cost savings. Rather than hiring labor or spending endless hours in the field, they can rely on robots to do the heavy lifting. However, while automation offers impressive advantages, it also raises important questions. What happens to farm workers when machines take over? How will smaller farms compete with massive industrial operations that can afford the latest tech? And for companies like John Deere, can they sell enough of these high-tech machines to sustain their business? At present, only the largest farms can afford such autonomous equipment. Smaller farms are still struggling to purchase traditional tractors, let alone AI-driven machines. This growing divide between large corporate farms and smaller family-owned operations is a critical issue, as big farms with the capital to invest in automation continue to surge ahead, while smaller farms fall further behind. John Deere is heavily invested in this automation revolution, but if their customers can't afford the technology, they could be taking a significant risk. The impact of immigration policies on agriculture. In addition to the shift toward automation, there's another looming challenge that could disrupt farming as we know it: immigration policies. While John Deere faces falling sales, outsourcing issues, and global competition, the immigration crisis presents a threat that could devastate the agricultural sector. Former President Donald Trump's recent announcement of a crackdown on undocumented workers could have disastrous effects on U.S. agriculture. Why? Over 70% of U.S. farm workers are immigrants.
Tonight, many of America's farmers already feeling the pinch are worried about the possibility of more challenges. That's because President Trump is threatening to deport millions of undocumented immigrants,
many of whom perform physically demanding tasks that most Americans won't take on. For decades, the farming industry has relied on immigrant labor to maintain low costs and ensure timely crop harvests. If stricter immigration policies drastically reduce the available workforce, farms could struggle to find enough workers to harvest crops. This isn't just a theoretical issue, it's already happened. In 2018, when immigration restrictions tightened, farms in California, Arizona, and Florida faced severe labor shortages, leading some farmers to leave crops rotting in the fields due to an insufficient workforce. If similar policies return, the entire U.S. agricultural industry could face a crisis. What's more, without enough workers, labor costs will rise sharply. Farmers may have to hire fewer workers at higher wages, driving food prices up at a time when crop prices are already falling. This financial strain could force many smaller farms out of business entirely. For John Deere, this new shift toward automation brings yet another challenge. If farmers can't afford labor to operate their equipment, why would they invest in new tractors or machines? The ripple effects of strict immigration policies, like those proposed by former President Trump, could impact every corner of the farming industry, leading to higher food prices, increased labor shortages, and even greater difficulty for struggling farms to stay afloat. The most pressing question now is, can John Deere and American agriculture as a whole overcome these challenges? For generations, small family farms have been the backbone of American agriculture, but today, they are on the brink of extinction. These farms face fierce competition from corporate farming giants, and many are struggling to survive in an industry dominated by large-scale operations. The numbers paint a bleak picture. Over the last 40 years, the U.S. has lost more than 50% of its small farms, and those that remain are operating on razor-thin margins, barely making enough to keep their doors open. The biggest challenge for these small farms is access to capital and technology. While large agricultural corporations can afford to invest in new machinery, automation, and precision farming tools, small farms simply can't keep up. This disparity is creating an ever-widening gap where large corporate farms continue to grow and become more efficient, while small farms are left behind. Furthermore, government subsidies tend to favor these larger operations, providing little relief to independent farmers. Many family farms now find themselves in direct competition with multinational corporations who have the resources to buy up land, invest in the latest technology, and weather economic downturns. With rising costs, falling crop prices, and uncertain labor availability, many small farms are reaching a breaking point. As a result, more and more family farms are selling off their land and exiting the industry. If this trend continues, the future of American farming could be drastically different. Instead of thousands of independent farms, a few mega corporations might control the entire food supply. Beyond economic and political pressures, climate change poses an even more urgent threat to agriculture. In recent years, farmers have faced more extreme weather events than ever before, including droughts, floods, hurricanes, and wildfires. These weather patterns are making it increasingly difficult to maintain consistent crop yields. In the Midwest, historic droughts have left millions of acres of farmland unproductive, forcing farmers to either abandon crops or rely on costly irrigation systems. In California, wildfires have destroyed farms and vineyards, while floods in the south have wiped out entire growing seasons.
Well, farmers in the Hawkesbury and Nepean areas could be facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses as heavy rainfall prevents the planting of crops.
It's not just the weather. Warmer temperatures have allowed pests and plant diseases to spread further than before, forcing farmers to spend more on pesticides and crop protection. Some farmers are adapting by investing in drought-resistant crops or using precision farming technology to better manage water use. However, the reality is that climate change is making farming riskier and more expensive. For John Deere, this presents both a challenge and an opportunity. The company has been investing in climate-friendly technologies, including electric tractors and automated irrigation systems that help farmers use resources more efficiently. The big question, though, is whether farmers will be able to afford these solutions. As climate change accelerates, farming costs are set to rise, and without the proper support and innovation, many farmers could be driven out of business, not due to the economy, but because of environmental factors. The road ahead for American agriculture. With so many pressures mounting on the agricultural sector, what does the future of farming look like? Is there any hope of turning things around? The farming industry isn't doomed, but it will require bold decisions, investment in new technologies, and government support. For John Deere, the future depends on innovation. If the company can successfully market its autonomous equipment and precision farming tools to a broader range of farmers, it could help improve efficiency and reduce costs without breaking the bank. At the same time, government policies must shift to support small farmers. Federal programs that offer grants for sustainable farming, lower interest loans for new equipment, and stronger protections against foreign competition could help level the playing field. Additionally, trade policies need to be restructured to ensure that American farmers have access to global markets again. Without strong export opportunities, U.S. farming will continue to struggle. Finally, the workforce crisis must be addressed. Immigration policies should take into account the vital role farm workers play in keeping agriculture running. If the labor force continues to shrink, farmers will face even more difficulties in the years ahead. This is a critical moment for farming. With the right changes, agriculture can not only survive but thrive. However, if these challenges are ignored, the industry could be permanently reshaped, with rising costs, global competition, and the decline of small farms taking center stage. The future of American farming is at a crossroads. Will the industry overcome the challenges posed by falling prices, rising costs, climate change, and global competition? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a permanent decline? We want to hear from you. Do you think John Deere can recover? Will small farmers survive the current crisis? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the most pressing issues shaping the world today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.